In a previous video, I talked about my tech stack update. Now, in this video, I made the bold proclamation that a 13-inch model iPad was not necessary because it didn't provide enough value to me to justify the cost increase or the weight increase. And I'm here to tell you today that I was wrong. I do stand by my assertion that the 11-inch model is a better tablet. So if you're walking around holding your device, 11 inches is much easier to deal with in one hand while you're doing something with an Apple Pencil in the other hand, or just you want to hold your iPad and read a book, or any of those kinds of scenarios where you don't have your iPad lying on a desk or on some sort of case. Now, I've had most models of iPad since they came out. I've skipped a generation here and there, but most of them I've had. I was very excited about the iPad Pro when it was released. And at this time, there was only the 12.9-inch model. It wasn't until the third generation that Apple released the 11-inch and 13-inch iPads Pro. I went immediately from the 12.9-inch original iPad Pro to the 11-inch third generation iPad Pro. And here's the honest truth about my relationship with the iPad. Ever since its release, it has sparked my imagination. I have wanted to do so much with it. That just hasn't been how I've used it. I do use my iPad for all these little things, like I do read books on my iPad. I do sketch on my iPad. I like to use my iPad in the kitchen when I'm cooking. Things like that are real use cases that I do use my iPad for. 11-inch is perfect for that. Anyway, wanting to use it and using it are very separate things. And that's why 11-inch just made so much sense to me. It was sort of like a larger iPhone with a much better screen. So what happened? Why did I change my mind here? And the truth is, some variables changed. Some things about how I use the iPad and what's going on in the world changed along with me. So the first thing that I can point out is the entire time I've owned an iPad, like the whole history of my iPad ownership, I have also had a MacBook Pro. And as much as I wanted to get rid of my laptop and go all in on the iPad, the truth of the matter was I couldn't. There was just some things that I simply couldn't do on the iPad that I could do on my MacBook Pro. For example, Figma is a piece of software that I have to use. It's adopted everywhere by all the companies I work for, and I have to have Figma. So on my iPad, that just was never an option. So if my main computer is a Mac and I have to have Figma on it, then I have a laptop and I have my iPad. That was just my reality for many, many years. But when I changed my main computer from a laptop to a desktop, when I switched to the M4 Max Mac Studio, all of a sudden my iPad was my mobile computing device. And what ended up happening was everything I hoped would happen happened. I used my iPad to think problems through. I used my iPad to craft notes, to talk to Claude, do all of this planning work before I even sit down on my computer to actually do the work. And that has been a revelation. Now, fortunately for me, this all was happening at the same time this monumental shift in our culture was happening with AI. Now, I'm not a person who would ever want to rely 100% on AI to do anything, but AI has been a very useful tool. The things that I don't want to do, AI can easily handle. I will take a fully formed idea and I'll create what's called a user test. Now, all of a sudden, we can make these very interactive prototypes that are much easier for a user to actually navigate through than the old click-through screens from Figma. This is a wonderful update and just a beautiful thing that AI creates. And here's where I start to get into a little bit of an issue with the 11-inch model. The 11-inch model is still visible. I can still see most of the application, but I'm starting to feel very cramped on the 11-inch model. So I guess what I'm getting at is the 37% increase from the 13-inch model was really starting to interest me. Now, all of these things did work on the 11-inch model iPad Pro. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend that they were broken in any kind of way. But there was one specific workflow that really broke the camel's back on this one. And that was I use an app called Replit. And I was building out a map for a client where the map when you would hover over different counties of a state, it would have all this extra information. And on the 11-inch model, I just found it to be totally frustrating. It was simply too small to have my Replit sidebar for my instructions and the little window that shows me the app being built. And that's when I realized that I had outgrown the 11-inch model. Everything from that day that I made the switch to this moment in time was me kind of pushing the 11-inch as far as I could push it. And I realized that I needed to get more screen real estate. So I went and I got the exact same model of iPad that I had with the 11-inch model. I got the 13-inch M5 iPad Pro with 1 terabyte of storage, nano texture glass, and Wi-Fi plus cellular. And I needed to get another Magic Keyboard because now my old 11-inch one that I've had actually for many generations of iPad, I needed to update that to the 13-inch model. But this time I skipped the Apple Smart Folio, choosing instead to go with this video's sponsor, MOFT. So in my time with the MOFT Dynamic Folio, I found it to be a much more versatile solution than most of the other little products that I've purchased for my iPads over the years. Now, I was already familiar with MOFT, having purchased their Snap-on phone stand and wallet for my iPhone 12 mini. So I've had that for quite a while. And I actually purchased a second one this year with my iPhone 17 Pro because I wanted a different color. MOFT has a way of understanding that you want to showcase your product, not bury it in a bunch of plastic. I love using the iPad in floating theater mode and definitely in floating creation mode. In floating creation mode, I feel like the iPad is being lifted up to meet me and my Apple Pencil. Floating theater mode is perfect for when I want to use my iPad as a reference monitor when I'm working in DaVinci Resolve. And there are so many other angles you can use this. The way the origami folds, you can use it in your lap when you're sitting on the couch and have a more sturdy experience than your iPad just sitting on your leg. They have a dual screen mode. You could use it for watching a informational video and taking notes on your iPad, or you can use it as a reference monitor when you take a photo of something beautiful and you want to try to sketch it out. All of these little uses are so unique to their individual folding mechanism, but it's all in one single case. I think that is a very important thing to point out. MOFT also has this in several different color combinations. I'm showing mine in beach white and terracotta. I love this orange color. As you can see on my Apple Watch, it is sort of a highlight color of mine. And they also have a few other accessories, like this Apple Pencil holder that you can clip right onto your Dynamic Folio. It just magnetizes right to the case. And then your Apple Pencil literally floats freely inside the space. So when you drop your Apple Pencil into it, it magnetizes right to your iPad edge. You can then put your iPad into like a backpack without removing your Apple Pencil. If you're interested in picking up any of these products or any product on the MOFT website, I'll leave links below with a discount code that will give you 10% off your purchase. My thanks to MOFT for sponsoring this video. And now back to why I switched to the 13-inch iPad Pro. So during this whole process, my wife has a M4 MacBook Air. And at the beginning of the transition, I definitely put my own user account on that Mac because on Macs, you can share devices. I still don't understand why you can't do this with iPads, but I digress. I would, get to a point on an iPad where I would get a little frustrated and I would pick up the laptop and start using it. This could have been just the solution for me. I could have just gone to the MacBook Air. But one of the problems that I had back in my old tech setup was I did not like trying to figure out where the latest version of my work was. So a lot of that is solved with cloud computing, but I don't do everything in the cloud. A lot of the work that I do is on my local drives, and with my laptops, I never got enough storage internally because you can always get an external SSD. And so I would have this SSD that I would work on from my Mac, my laptop, and then I would sync to my other Mac and I would get sync errors and I would have to try to figure out which file was the more recent file. And it was just, it wasn't fun for me to do that. That's kind of the point. I didn't want that. That's not the world I wanted to live in. I didn't want two devices that essentially do the same thing. One's a laptop, one's a desktop, and I'm just bouncing between them. That didn't seem like what I wanted for myself. So I really did try to commit to using the iPad as my mobile computing device. For my job, for the work that I do, AI has become critical. I don't feel like I can stress how important this shift is. And what it really did for me was it took so much of what I had to do on my Mac and it pulled that away. You know, when you're working with these design systems and you're creating all these workflows, what that work is tedious. You know, it's not that I can't do that work. I've been doing that work my whole career, but it's still tedious. It still takes a lot of time. When you're working this way, it's very frustrating because you're essentially doing repeat things over and over. And that, for me, is where AI really helps. You know, I don't use AI to generate anything. Every time I do a little test with AI where I'm like, okay, design me this kind of thing, I find the results to be laughable. I'm very hopeful that reason will prevail and people will come back to the fold and understand that AI is just another tool like any other tool. And it's a fantastic tool. And the wonderful thing is it's almost all cloud-based, browser-based stuff. It has been completely eye-opening. So I can take a sketch that I do in GoodNotes and I'll take my mockup and I'll give that to Claude Design or one of those tools. You already have the design system defined. I don't need to create anything new. This is not a new pattern that I'm creating. I just need you to create this screen that has these UI elements on it. It already has my design system in the library. I've already given it all my instructions. It's this perfect production artist tool for me. And I really, really love using it that way. It's funny too, because I had come to this like acceptance or this idea that, you know, Apple would never let the iPad become a real work tool. Like they would always hamstring it in some way. So you could never use it quite the way you could use your Mac. And there was really nothing that you could do about it as the consumer. But I think what happened here is the world changed. So even if Apple didn't want you to use the iPad the way I'm using it, there's no way they could take that away from us now. That, you know, they would have to literally break the browser to take away these tools. And if they did that, I think there would be a revolt. So the iPad has become a very functional working tool for me. And it had nothing to do with the way I used to work. It has everything to do with what has become of work. For the kind of work that I do, this is stuff you only dreamed about, 10 years ago. It was like, God, I wish I could just show them what it looks like. I just wish they could see what the interaction is. There are so many times in my own professional career where I couldn't get an idea pushed through because nobody could envision it. So being able to do this and being able to do this on an iPad is just shocking. It has literally changed how I work. So the 13-inch model to me, because of that work, because of all the ways that I'm using the iPad, which, by the way, are not the ways people suggest you use the iPad, this has been the game changer for me. And 13 inches is definitely worth it. 37% more screen real estate when you're working on apps that are supposed to be on the web and you need to see it on a browser. That smaller 11-inch size does cause me problems. So that's it. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. That does really help the channel. And I want to thank MOFT for sponsoring this video. Remember, there are links below with discount codes if you're interested in any of MOFT's products. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.